I'm running some errands in town today, and I thought, well, like I mentioned in another video, I'd like to stack some functions and collect a truckload of wood chips and some compost for our chickens. That's what those buckets on the top are for. And I thought I would share with folks some notes on the tools and techniques that I use for filling my truck and unloading my truck. Some are going to be no-brainers and kind of you've already seen them. Some might be new. So stick with me and I'll share some of these things with you, and hopefully you'll find something useful. The first note I want to share is that if you live somewhere, most of us do, where there are municipal piles of wood chips, and I'm standing near one that's probably got many thousands of cubic yards of wood chip in here. In the dead of winter, my goal is to get wood chips that have as much heat in them as possible. So before I tuck in with my truck, I look for where steam is coming out, or I poke around with a tool, because partly and mainly I'm harvesting this to keep our chickens warm and keep their composting system operational. That's the first little tip, is I like to look for thermophilically active chips. In the summer, you may be looking for raw chips or coarser chips that are better for walkways and all that. So take a moment and scout out the pile before you tuck in. The other things I want to mention, there's a tool here called the load handler. I am not affiliated or sponsored by these folks, but after a bunch of years of working with it, I can say I absolutely love it. Let me pause for a second and show you how that's set up. So there'll be a link to this down in the description below, and I'd recommend for anyone that has a truck and they plan on loading more than 5 loads of wood chips or manure or any heavy stuff into their truck, or unloading lumber and all that, or firewood, worthwhile investment. It's about $100. Again, I'm not paid by them, but I think it's a great tool. And I bought an old one for my last truck. This one is for my full-size truck. You can see it's got some wear and tear on it. What I don't do with this is I don't strap it down onto the tailgate. That's what they normally recommend. I just leave it rolled up and put it on, bring it forward across the whole bed, and tuck it in the far side. And you'll see once I load up why this is so useful. So the next order of business is having the right kind of tools to load the truck with. And I'll say, I would venture a guess, I've loaded trucks with compost, wood chips, or manure, maybe over 400 loads, some insane amount. I've been doing it for 10 years. And what I'll say is this: I started out with a standard shovel. Either one of these is what I thought would be good, and absolutely miserable after 1 or 2 loads. If it's all you have, go for it, but this is not the tool to use. Likewise, what you don't want to use is a snow shovel or anything along that line. Shovels really don't work for moving things like wood chips or manure. Maybe really loose, dry piles of sawdust. But if I'm going for wood chips or bedding or manure, 2 tools stand out to me as really critical. Number one, I like a 5 or 6 tine hay fork or bedding fork or manure fork. This one I bought from a local Agway store. You don't need to order these online. Support your local hardware store. Look on Craigslist and Farm and Garden, see if anybody has them. I prefer a nice stout one. The older ones can be a little lean and lightweight. I like one with good strong tines, 5 or 6 tines with a good weight, good strength that lets me get into frozen chips and pry and do that sort of work. So I really stand by this. And then I also, at this point, this is relatively new to me. Again, I'm not sponsored by these folks. I have no affiliation. I don't get money from them. But I have used the tool and I really love it. This is the A.M. Leonard Poly Scoop. I'll link again to the description down below. In fact, I invested in both the D handle and the long handle, thinking I would use both. If I'm only going to buy one, it's going to be this one. The D handle really works for me. So I'm going to shut up here and actually show the process of loading this truck with the 5 tine stout manure fork and my D handle A.M. Leonard Poly Scoop. It's about 15 minutes to fill this truckload with that poly fork and with my good manure fork in case it gets bound up or there's icy chunks. Some key things that I wanted to add to this is I like to take my truck and make sure I tuck in real nice and tight to the pile, so it's a short distance. I try to chip at the pile in a way where automatically new material will tumble towards me as I'm digging. And the other most important part is the ergonomics. You'll notice I don't bend my back much at all. It's kind of like a rapid fire Tai Chi exercise more than anything. So yeah, pretty darn quick to load this up. Now is on to the next spot. I leave a little bit of room to load up with chicken compost, and then I can head home. Back home with a couple 100 pounds of organic and restaurant food scraps for the chicken, so that goes to them first. So I'm ready to unload the truck of these wood chips, and this is where I wanted to share notes on the load handler and the strategy that I use. You can see I've got the wheelbarrow ready to go. One little side trick or note, we're in the frigid winter, and any debris and particulate that's stuck in corners and nooks and crannies of this tailgate when I go to close it can seize up and make it impossible to open or close the tailgate until things thaw. The trick that I use is I put a little piece of heavy-duty tape over the latch on both sides so that as I'm unloading I don't get debris in there as much, and then I can easily peel this off and stick it to the side of the truck when I'm not using it and replace it every 5 or 6 times that I take a load. That just makes it so much easier. So the load handler comes with this arm that so I don't lose it. I always just keep it right under the seat of my truck, and what this does is on the driver's side there's a little slit in the tube. You pop that in and now you've got an arm for the conveyor belt, and you can see without much fuss it moves forward. So what I do is I bring it forward a little bit like this, leave it, or I'll pull this out so it doesn't get lost in the snow. And then use my fork to comfortably load the wheelbarrow. So there you have it. A couple neat tricks that I've been working with for a few years that I love, and hopefully some are useful to you. If I wasn't making a video the whole time, I would guess be a good solid half hour in total labor involved in this whole project. But I made a video, so it took me about an hour and a half, setting up shots and all that with my incredibly high-tech new tripod. I'm going big. Thanks for watching.